Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is a roster video. We've got the final week of Grand Arena coming up, so we have a few maintenance things that I want to get accomplished. This is going to be a quick one though. There's not too much new to address. So just our standard stuff. Looking at the Marquees, we got Shin, Hati. We've got progress on the farms with Morgan Elsbeth. We'll take a look at where Balin Skull looks and where GL Ahsoka looks based on these newer releases. Datacrons we're probably not going to touch. We might mention a thing or two, but resources are limited and I want to be careful. Before we start dropping the gear, just the context, bird's eye view of everything that we're seeing here again. The colors are the only thing that we really care about, just so that we understand what's in surplus, what's in deficit. What I did this week though is Shin Hati's information has been added to the Balin Skull project, and this column here, this is two items. This is Ezra in Exile, so that I can be working ahead towards him so I can be in a position to relic him once he's unlocked in 2 months, and also it has the Plo Koon Datacron. Most of that's fairly minor. I've been spending signal data because I know we have a little bit more time, although I really want to be transitioning into a big signal data farm once I'm done with Morgan Elsbeth, because these numbers are getting big and a little worrisome. But what I was able to see, and this is why this spreadsheet exists by inputting all that information, is I'm not where I thought I was with the Mark 8 Nubian scanner. Between Plo Koon and Ezra in Exile in particular, Shin Hati as well, we have the biggest deficit of any Gear 12 Plus piece within here. The rest of this will be fairly manageable, but we need to do some work with that particular resource. Also, in terms of Kairos, usually I'm just using my get currency on the Kairo prods, because in most cases, in a lot of projects, you need like double of these compared to the computer. I mean, that's kind of an average scenario. Sometimes it's 3 times as many. But in this case, I actually need more of the Cairo computer, which is unusual, and it just means that I'm going to shift some of that get currency towards this computer. Like that, this bird's eye view is allowing me to make that kind of informed decision. Favorited, we have a lot of the Marquee releases, but a lot of characters I also would love to get to R8 or higher relics, or relics just to finish out a squad. Shin Hati is our Marquee release, our most recent Marquee release. I like to do these all on screen, so we're going to take her up to Gear 11. That is standard practice. She's about average for a character, maybe slightly above average, and we'll drop on these Gear 11 pieces, at least a few of them, not the Kairos. If there is one. I don't recall if there is one. Yeah, there's not. So get those stats. We will drop on the Omegas. I did think in terms of her Omicron abilities, if you watch the kit analysis video, this is a very interesting territory war character. I would, if I ever get into a position where I feel like we have a surplus of Omicrons, I'd probably consider like Kelleran and Shin Hati as options for a territory war Ami. But right now I'm pretty low on Omicrons. So Balin Skull, we are now actively working towards Morgan Elsbeth, doing triple refreshes on this character, and probably about 2 weeks we'll be done with that farm. And hopefully we have a little bit of time before we get another Cantina character, because I would like to transition back to that signal data. Now, Merrick, we should be getting soon to fill out this final spot. I do love the Great Mothers team. That's another thing. I'm going hard after Great Mother and Morgan Elsbeth. I've already relicked Spirit and Acolyte. I want them to be a relic squad quickly. They are a very strong counter to a lot of squads, and I think that's going to open up a lot once we have relics on them. Like, they're going to shut down Jar Jar at relics. They don't do it without relics right now, but they do beat Radis. They do stand up to Dark Trooper Moff Gideon. Not with the Moff Gideon Kron, but before the Kron was active, they could do some work there. And I haven't used them up against Queen Amidala yet, at least a good one, but they have effectiveness against that squad as well. So a lot of the very common and strong defensive teams that we are seeing, Morgan, Elsbeth, and the Great Mothers are going to be a solution to. Now, Plo Koon is a character I am tempted by for Datacron purposes. I do have the Datacron, but because I don't have the signal data to take him up to Relic 5, I'm just going to ignore him until that point. Technically, I have the signal data to do it, but then I would have no signal data left, and I do not want to be in that position. And Night Trooper, you can see the progress on that farm, getting very close to 6 stars by next week. By the next roster video, definitely, but during Conquest at some point, we will get him up to 6 stars and in time for that new season of Grand Arena. And sometime within that window, we would also see Judge Death become farmable. Just going to round out just a couple items to discuss. The raid characters, I have been able to get 6.2 crate, not consistently though. So I'm going to improve mods in some places. I'm going to add a couple relics, maybe to like Jar Jar, characters who are going to benefit from higher relics, but I'm pretty satisfied where I am. I just would like to get to a point where I can consistently achieve that crate. And really the biggest point to that would be Queen Amidala, because actually I'm doing better than 1800k. Really, I could max out with that squad, and if I get 2400 or better, that's enough for me to get that 6.2 million crate. But that number would be lowered if, for instance, if increasing Jar Jar relics gets my Gungans up to a higher score, if I could max out that attempt, or here Kelleran. See, that's not even the Kelleran squad I've been using. What I've been using is this squad here, where I've been throwing an IG 100 so I can have a relic character to go for the relic 1 tier, and that allows me to get a slightly better score than this, but something in this range. Plo would go in there naturally, but unless Plo is a requirement for Ahsoka, I'm trying not to do it. This current Datacron is very tempting, and because of the ship and this Cron, I'll probably end up doing the relics, but it's something that is going to have to wait until I feel like I'm not so deep in a hole of resources. Before Conquest starts, what I'm hoping to add to these Datacrons, though, a few things that were missing, but I've got a lot of the big ones that I wanted. The ones that I would still like to get is K2SO, kind of. I had it, I re-rolled that one. Just to give myself the option, maybe I would consider adding a relic there, because then it would give me a fully relic Radis squad. I want the Morgan Elsbeth one. I want the Captain Enoch one. Those I put off during the first session, because we're not going to have those characters at relics for another month or so there's no use to it. But that is the big project. Everything else I was able to get during the first Conquest, which does mean I'll be able to save a decent amount of crystals during this next Conquest period, which is going to be really helpful, because we're going to have that Punishing One chase show up very soon, probably right after the bonus drops that we're getting with Zetas and Kairos and Omegas. That is just one of those events where CG is trying to drain our crystal banks before those events, so those events will generate more money for them. So I'm actually going to be a little bit conservative with these bonus drops, partly because I feel okay with a lot of those resources, so that I have more crystals to throw at the chase. Because it's something that I did with the Marauder, is I did every refresh necessary to make sure I finished this ship during the event, and that's something I think I would like to continue moving forward. Like, I'm okay going deep into my crystal hoard for a ship chase and having those ships early and giving myself an advantage in Grand Arena in that respect. And the Marauder worked out great for that, and that's the whole reason of having a hoard. It's to take advantage of these kinds of moments. And before we wrap up, I'm just going to show like the characters that I would like to add resources to. I showed this briefly during the last video and then just realized it was going to be too much and too boring to really include me trying to figure all of this out. But at this point, now I've got this organized a little bit more. We've got GLs that I would like to push up to Relic 8 or Relic 9. Jar Jar's in there to fill out the spot. We have different Journey Guide characters that I want to be pushing up to Relic 8. We've got Conquest characters. All of these I would like to get up to Relic 8. Sith characters I would like to get up to either Relic 8 or 7 depending on the character. Tanks that are all going to really benefit from higher relics that are on some important squads, so these are characters I would like to get up to Relic 8. And then characters that are part of key squads or counters. So we have Fennec. Don't use it as much these days, really, unless like a Lord Vader attempt goes wrong. That's what she's there for. But I'd still like to get her to a higher relic but that's a very low priority one. 000 I would like to do for territory battles and for the Afra counter. Less important than the BT1 relic that I already have at Relic 8, but being able to add him in territory battles for additional waves is going to be pretty beneficial. Right now I don't have that option. And then Grief Karga and Mando, obviously very valuable characters to both Fennec but also other bounty hunter squads that's needed at this stage. And Jedi characters like Cal Kestis for territory battles, Jedi Knight Revan at Relic 5 is somewhat limiting also for territory battles. Ezra's going to happen with Jil Ahsoka, so it's not a huge deal. And then Plo and Juhani to round out squads so that I can throw Datacrons or have more flexibility and options. Droid characters that I've been ignoring or need to fill out a squad. Pilots, I would love to get any pilot up to relics. The entire Zori squad, not a huge priority, but I would like to get them all pushed up gradually and eventually. And then other characters that would be valuable relics for one reason or another. Tarful, because I'd like to eventually work towards Wookiees. You know CG is going to be adding Wookiees that is going to make Tarful a lot stronger. Like Kelnaka is basically guaranteed, and Gunji at some point is also probably pretty likely. So working ahead in certain squads where we know we're going to see them get better is going to have some value, some long-term value that won't expire. Tuskens, I'd at least like a 3v3 team that I could throw a relic on, and then Geo's double duty in terms of flexibility, ships, and 4 counters. And also this squad here, Cal Kestis and Fulcrum, so I can have a Ser Junda squad that I can throw a Datacron on, so I can't do right now. Vandor and Young Han. Young Han, like you see what Glurmit does with Young Han, and I'm very jealous. Plus we have that Kron right now. It's one of those characters I'd love to do, but I'm just too many pieces away from being able to fully utilize. I'd like to address that. Vandor, obviously part of that. And then Hondo is just awesome. I'd love to get him to Relic 8 eventually. But we will wrap it up there. Hopefully CG gives us some actual requirements for Jil Ahsoka so that we can make some better plans, because right now we are flying blind. But thank you for watching. Be excellent to each other, everybody. This is Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.